Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. My host, JP John Poz. With me today, a very special guest. He's, of course, the foremost wrestling guy when it comes to statistics, money, financials, anything you want to talk about as far as the business of wrestling. He is, of course, Mr. WrestleNomics himself, Mr. Brandon Thurston. Brandon, welcome back.
Hi, John. It's great to be with you.
You've been very busy. You got a lot of stuff going on in your world.
I was busy just as we were about to go to air here. I had to make sure something was taken care of.
Nice. Let's just hit the ground running here. What's the latest on this AEW deal? What is the deal? Do we have the financials? Is everything kind of set and squared away?
It's a new deal. It's for a lot of money, more money than I have. There's at least two reports. There's Sports Business Journal saying 170. There 170 million. There's Variety and others saying 185 million. Dave Meltzer at the Observer has even itemized each year at 180, 185, and 190. I think there's equity involved in this that's making the value, the monetary value of the deal harder to pin down. But I think the vast majority of it is cash, and it's a lot of cash, and it's probably enough cash that for AEW to be profitable in the years, maybe beginning next year.
So 3 years, or is it 4 years?
It's 3 years with a 1-year option. So at the end of after the first 3 years, WBD will have the choice to extend it for another year, probably at a further increase in say it's 190 in the third year for something more than 190 in the last year, if they choose to use that option, which they had in this deal that's expiring. We're now in the option year right now for AEW's current deal.
Now, you mentioned profitability. I had an interview with somebody. I asked him, is AEW going to be profitable? And somebody clipped it and they put it online or something. And one of the AEW sickos, how do I know that? Because I looked at the guy's X account and it was all AEW stuff, retweets, blah, 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 which is fine. But he's like, y'all are so stupid. Why would you even ask that question? Of course they're profitable. And I'm thinking to myself, I was like, that was a dumb question. That's like one of the things that I'm just curious, like, can they be profitable? So you said it, they will be profitable. I guess it was a dumb question by me because I was thinking that, will they be profitable in the new deal?
I mean, AEW is not a publicly traded company. We haven't run into any situation where they've been required to disclose their profitability. But I mean, so that's just sort of my opinion of the situation. That is my read of it. We also got Chris Harrington, former WrestleNomics person.
Oh yeah.
Disclosed in a legal filing related to the Kevin Kelly lawsuit that they paid $60 million in talent compensation over a course of, I believe it's like 25 months, so just over 2 years, which is less than I thought that they were paying for talent, which brings the expenses down to lower than what I thought. Suffice to say, in under my assumptions, it becomes easier for them to be profitable versus what I thought it was before. It's hard for me to imagine a scenario in which they are not profitable. Now, there are other businesses like ticket sales are not great, but this is just a different wrestling business than it was in the 80s or the 90s.
When you look at that too, like as far as just profitability and figuring stuff out, would they have been profitable before without the video games? Was that like the big holdup, or was there more to it than that?
No, I think they would not have been profitable under any reasonable circumstance, just because their media, this is overwhelmingly a media business. This is a business about selling TV rights to TV partners, and you need a lot of money to cover the production costs and the talent costs that come with producing a wrestling show that's of the scale of AEW.
So when you look at it, their first deal that they got kind of got lowballed, right? If you look at it versus the deal that they have now.
I think they got probably a fair deal considering it was, so they got one deal that was, we don't know. It was probably, an ad revenue share. Maybe there was some additional payment to cover the cost of production. That's what they had for the first 3 months of AEW Dynamite's existence from October to December. And then they got a renewal just before the pandemic kicked in January 2020. And that was $44 million average annual value to include Dynamite and Collision. At that point, it was delivering good enough ratings that it justified a better deal than the one that they signed onto in the first place. But it was, probably a fair deal for a very new wrestling brand. And they had 5 years to prove themselves, and I think that was essentially the business plan. Is that this isn't going to be profitable for 5 years, like a lot of startups are not profitable for the first several years, and then they eventually become profitable.
When I look at that deal, right, it's like 555 million, right, is like I guess you could say that's for the 3 years. I mean, that's great. That's amazing. You look at something like a property like the NHL. I feel like the NHL got overpaid. So it's almost like, is everybody getting overpaid? I feel the NBA was like way overpaid. You know what I mean? I feel like live sports entertainment, you're getting. I mean, I feel like they got AEW at a pretty good deal. I feel like they way overpaid for the NHL. Nobody watches the NHL as far as when I'm looking at the ratings.
Well, there's a broader conversation, I guess, to be had about whether any of these media rights fees are rational. Does it make sense?
Right.
And I don't have the tightest grip to have a strong opinion on it, but how the TV networks are making their money back is not only ad revenue, but also carriage fees. They're charging your cable carrier, to carry TBS or TNT
Right.
or ESPN or whatever it is, and that's how they make a lot of their money back. Now, is TNT and TBS going to make all their money back? Are they going to make $180 million a year in ad revenue related to AEW? Probably not. So they're justifying that in some way or another, and maybe I don't think there's any carriage fees that's going to be directly tied to AEW. There's some marketing value, and you'll see certain things on AEW programming that will be other TNT and TBS programming or other WBD properties that'll be promoted sometimes. But so they're sort of like we saw, what was it, the Rick and Morty tie-in, and there's probably other ones that I'm forgetting. So there's some marketing value there. But I don't know. Some of these are just loss leaders, I think, and it goes into justifying the rest of the business, and overwhelmingly it is carriage fees. And I think the NHL is tied directly to carriage fees in a lot of these deals. And this is all fragmented, right? Because I'm sure WBD has a deal with Comcast that's different from their deal with DirecTV, that's different from their deal with Spectrum, and so on. But yeah, is the TV business still profitable? Yeah, it put streaming aside. The traditional TV business is still profitable. And if you need to get any proof of that, look at your cable bill. It's pretty expensive, right? So they're making money. It's declining. Now the pile of profits per year for traditional TV is getting smaller and smaller, and that's why investment is being made in streaming. And it's mostly unprofitable investments that are being made in streaming, but they have to invest in something that's going to replace a lot of these dwindling profits, which are still profitable in traditional TV.
When you do look at streaming too, like WB got an insane deal from Netflix. Are any of these deals in your mind like, man, this is like too much? Like, are they giving them too much money on some of these deals? Like, what's the benefit to some of these deals for them if it's not going to be, I don't know, like you said, maybe like a lost leader, but what's like the benefit of some of these deals? I feel like some of them are just wacky.
I mean, I don't know. If you look at something we should think about too, and think about AEW, is that they're going to have this content not only on TBS and TNT, but they're also going to be on Max, and that will drive some behavior and some subscriber activity to Max. So even though they might not be directly justifying carriage fees in deals where it's like explicitly, because you have AEW, we're going to have this sort of written into our deal with Comcast or whoever, but it is going to help Max acquire and retain subscribers. And I'm sure the pitch was, hey, it's 52 weeks a year, there's no break. Do any of these make sense? I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough. Like, look at the NFL. Does the NFL deal make sense? It's by far the most popular telecasts that there are in the United States, and I don't know off the top of my head what their deal is. It's in the billions per year.
Yep.
Does it make sense? I mean, again, these TV networks are still profitable, so it makes enough sense for them to be profitable. And now, if all these TV networks were not only declining in subscribers but also losing money on their traditional TV business, then you could definitely say, well, there's a problem here, and they've all overbid. But these are all TV networks that are bidding on houses, but instead of houses, they're bidding on various sports and other kinds of TV programs, and traditional TV still makes money.
Do you think with AEW, as far as like the ratings, do you think people make too much of a big stink about the ratings? Because still, they were number 4 one week in the rating. They were number 3 for cable for the week. Do you think that people making too big of a a stink about, oh, they only did 700, oh, they only did 685, or is that too big of a stink just as far as this deal is concerned?
Yes, I mean, for the people who want to, you know, compare WWE and AEW, and they favor one or the other, they care too much about ratings. At least if they're trying to consider the future of their respective businesses. I always try to separate. There's two things going on here when you're looking at the ratings. You can consider, what's the popularity? Is it growing or is it diminishing? And then we have to take into account cord cutting and whatever else.
Yep.
But then there's something different from that, which is media value. Now your media value can remain strong. It can grow even when your popularity is on a slow decline. And that was the case for WWE in 2018. Its TV ratings, its other popularity indicators were on a slow multi-year decline going into that renewal. And Nick Khan came along, and it's not just because of him, but it's because of how highly ranked Raw and SmackDown were. They were able to more than triple their TV rights value. AEW here, in the last couple of years, their popularity has been on a slow decline. Their TV ratings have declined worse than the rate of cord cutting. But Dynamite still ranks in the top 5 most weeks in the demo. And that's good enough to be renewed at the rate they got their TV rights. I think we don't really know what the incumbent deal is worth with Collision and all that, but they got their rights basically doubled. There's a difference. And this is like, it feels irrational if you're looking at it from the perspective of the wrestling business of the 80s and 90s, where you live and die on how many butts you put in the seats, how many tickets you sell, maybe how much merchandise you sell. That's on the decline probably for AEW. And that was on the decline for WWE in 2018. But the business has changed. It's no longer a consumer-based business. It's a TV network-based business. And these TV networks that you used to pay the syndicators around the country, right? Just to get on their TV so that you could sell tickets or a pay-per-view or whatever. It's been turned on its head, right? The TV networks, and now it's national TV networks that are paying you just to have you there. And that's all consistent with the increase in your cable bill over time as it's become sort of this staple in American life, is that as the 90s went on, is that everybody's got cable and everybody's paying more and more for their cable bill. And this is how we justify customers continuing to keep their cable in their homes. Even though they hate their cable company, they still pay their bills. It's less of them over time, and younger people are not signing up for cable. But people are still paying these subscriber fees, and the way we justify that is with the most popular programming. And even though WWE was on the decline in 2018, and even though we could mention too, WWE was on the increase in popularity. Here's another thing that doesn't make sense. WWE was on the increase in popularity since Vince McMahon resigned for the first time in July 2022. Their TV ratings went up, their ticket sales went up, but they didn't get the TV rights increase to the degree that the market thought they would. They were, leading up to that TV renewal for WWE, a lot of stock analysts were expecting maybe a 70% or an 80% increase. They got like a 30% increase. Fox was not interested in keeping SmackDown, at least at an aggressive rate. They're on Netflix, and that's exciting, and that might turn out to be really great for WWE, but it was only at a roughly 30% increase. This wasn't a tripling of their TV rights like they got in 2018. So just it's this counterintuitive wrestling business that I think exacerbates everybody's understanding and fighting about wrestling. That's just like, it doesn't make sense. And in the 80s and 90s perspective of wrestling, where you're supposed to draw money and draw attention and draw people into the seats and to watch, yeah, it is very counterintuitive.
It's so interesting. It's almost like the value of having a live program, like for AEW is concerned, a live program on weekly cable television. I'm like, that's almost worth more than what the ratings might be able to bring in, right? I mean, it just seems like even like NHL having that live sports for 82 games, it just seems like that's the value of that is crazy right now.
And enough people watch it. Not as many people watch it as they used to in the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars era, but enough people still watch it that if you look at the rankings on a Wednesday night or on a Monday night or on a
Yeah,
Friday
usually
night,
top.
among and it's definitely the case for Raw and SmackDown. They're basically number one. For Raw, that won't be the case when there's Monday Night Football, but they'll be just underneath that. And for Dynamite, they'll be in the top 5. And so as long as they continue to rank, if you're praying for the death of AEW, what you need to watch for is look at the Wednesday night rankings, and you need Dynamite to fall out of the top 5 and fall out of the top 10. Then they'll die or whatever. And if they have no other program that's ranking highly, then they're in trouble. But as long as that's happening, they'll be okay.
But if AEW dies, that you lose hundreds of jobs in wrestling, not only the wrestlers, but all the production people. I mean, that would be terrible. Plus, then Swerve, MJF, Daniel Garcia, they can get more money, right? And then that leads to Kevin Owens when his contract's up. He gets more money. Rhea Ripley. So I feel like people are kind of crazy with that stuff because it actually will kill the business. Look what happened when WCW died. WWF is terrible for 20 years. You know what I mean? It's not good for the business.
Right. I believe it's been a really good thing for talent, especially upper mid-level talent who more than one company is interested in. It's just like TV rights. If you have multiple networks interested in you, you're probably going to get a better deal.
Yep.
If you're selling a house and you have multiple people who want to buy your house, you're probably going to get a better deal, or you're going to be able to pick which one you like best.
When you look at the contracts too, I noticed that I feel like it gets leaked out there like, oh, Swerve's contract, it's over market value. Same thing happened with MJF. Same thing has happened with Garcia. That always sneaks out there. I always feel like it's always the AEW people above market value. Is that a WWE thing? Is that something that you hear internally? Because obviously you know a lot about the metrics and the money and the financials. Is that something you hear that like it's almost like a leakage by WWE to try to get their contracts to be lowered?
I have no idea. Like, I never hear anything internally. Like, I don't really deal with talent numbers that much. As far as like talent pay, like I have a vague idea of what I think certain people are getting, but I don't have great direct knowledge. I'm aware of what you're talking about, and that like there's rumors that somebody said from the WWE side that this new deal with Swerve is way over market, and I have no idea if that's something that was really said or not. It's in their interest. It's in W's interest, though, right? For there to be a perception that they want to be able to pay people less rather than more, right? Just like TV networks want to be able to pay wrestling companies less rather than more. I want to pay less rather than more on my cable bill or on my heating bill or my electric bill.
Yeah.
So that's just in their interest, I guess. Is it worth the cost of the perception being out there that they're like being anti-worker or something like that, or they're being anti-competition? I mean, I don't know. That's a calculation we can all make for ourselves, I guess.
I always feel like whenever that's floated out there, it's always like reverse. It's like they want their guys to be like, oh, we're not getting, we're not going to get that much. Those guys got overpaid. We're going to keep you here. Like, I feel like that's always like a management kind of thing. It's like, well, we want to pay our guys less. We don't want to go crazy. We don't want to go off the scale, even if they'll do that over here.
Right. I want people to work for free if possible.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to pay anybody anything.
Yeah. So when you look at AEW where they're at, and obviously you mentioned Max, right? What is going to be on Max? Is it going to be like you can watch Dynamite on Max, or if you have cable traditional, you can watch it on TBS TNT, or pay-per-views? Like what's Max like? What's that part of the deal?
Dynamite and Collision are going to simulcast.
Okay.
So if you have cable, you can watch it on TNT or TBS. If you have Max, you can watch it on Max. The pay-per-views will be on there at some kind of a discount that they have not finalized what the details of that discount is going to be, but you have to be a subscriber to Max. And if you're a subscriber to Max, you'll get the pay-per-view at some value that's less than what everybody else is paying. And that's good for them, right? They want, especially if you're if you're a Max subscriber and you're watching Dynamite and Collision in their buzzword, ecosystem that you can, here's how you can just, use your remote and drop $50 or whatever it is to buy our pay-per-view. There will be the library of Dynamite, Collision, and Rampage. Everything that is already aired on TNT and TBS, I believe, will be on Max. The pay-per-views, I believe they want to put on Max, but it's going to take some preparing of that video to make it suitable for the Max platform. I guess there's like some technical issues in like things that have already been put into the format, and it'll be like invisible to our eyes, but like the things that have already been put into the format that WBD needs them in, that have already aired on their TV, those are basically ready to go. But the things that have not, which are the pay-per-views, is a different story. But I believe the intent is to get the pay-per-views on there, the pay-per-view library. Now, it's a different question of how quickly the pay-per-views that have aired are going to start to appear. I think it's going to be a pretty big window. Could be months, could be a year, but it's not like you're going to be able to wake up the next day and just through your subscription be able to watch the pay-per-view the next day. You're going to have to pay for that $50 or whatever it is.
It's not Peacock-esque where you pay the $7 a month and get it for free. Okay.
No, it's more going to be more like, the UFC pay-per-views, obviously, right? Well, probably not as expensive, but pretty close.
So what's the equity for WBD in this? Because I was reading an article with you said it could be around 10%, or it's not more than 10.
It's definitely not 10% unless they're lying in their court filings, which is unlikely. Yeah,
right.
Less than 10%. So what WBD, you can listen to Tony Khan talk around it, which he has a couple times, and most recently he just did last week. He does not say much explicitly, particularly when it comes to objective facts, but my reading of what he's saying is that he has all the voting shares. WBD has some relatively small percentage of voting shares, or of stock, which are not voting shares. So that would mean, like, if they're, when it comes to control of the company, or if this company ever got as complex as to have, shareholders who are voting on something at this moment, Tony controls all of that, and WBD basically has no say, but they do have some equity. They do have some shares in the company. And it's my belief that they, as part of this deal, there's some sort of equity this is just my belief. I don't know this to be true. It's my belief that there's some sort of equity transaction that is happening in this next deal, that, I don't know, I would lean towards thinking that WBD ends up owning a little bit more. And we're talking about, less than 10% at this moment, and it could be really far away from 10%. Could be just a few percent or something like that. I don't know. But it makes sense. I mean, you think back to the XFL, the first one, where Viacom and NBC Universal got pretty significant stakes in the XFL, which were the broadcasters at that time. It's with AEW, everything gets twisted into being bad somehow. Is it bad that WBD owns them and owns a pretty small percentage of them? No, I think it just aligns their interests, and you don't have an AEW without a major TV network like WBD to broadcast them. So yeah, I could see the leverage being like, well, give me some of your ownership then.
I see it as a good thing, though, because then it's like they have a little stake in the game. They're going to want to keep them successful. They're going to promote them more.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I feel like when WCW obviously it was really bad because they owned the whole thing, and then they don't give them production money, they don't pay them for TV rights. That kind of, obviously back then was like a completely different business, but that sucks. But now it's different. You own 10% or less, whatever it is, equity. And then basically they might promote you more. They put you on Max. They'll do different things to look out for their own interests as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's why executives have shares and things like that in big companies, so that they are, and not just executives, but if you've ever worked for like a big corporation, even at a mid-level, you've probably gotten stock options. That's to make everybody feel like they're part of it, and to align your interests, so you're not sabotaging your own company.
Yeah.
But the opposite. Yeah.
Right. Who is Beatnik? And is it Chad or is it Tony? Is that Tony's company?
So Beatnik Investments LLC is the parent company of AEW, which way back, several years ago, was something that Shad Khan used to invest in the Black News channel. I guess that business project didn't work out. They filed for bankruptcy. Byron Allen bought the project. This is an LLC now that's being controlled by Tony and Shanna Khan. And it's just, I don't know. I'm sure there's like additional legal and business complexities that make it a good idea to do it this way. That's what they've done.
Beatnik, is that like the old Archie Bunker? He used to call Meathead or whatever. They call him Beatniks or whatever. Like, what does that mean? What's a beat? Is that like an old like '60s term almost, like beatnik?
I think so, right? The beats were a different thing. Beatnik were members of a social movement in the mid 20th century who subscribed to an anti-materialistic lifestyle. They rejected the conformity and consumerism of mainstream American culture and expressed themselves through various forms of art, such as literature, poetry, music, and painting. Nothing about wrestling there, though.
No, definitely not. So Beatnik now has nothing to do with Shad. That's Tony's baby. And
according to Florida company filings, it is controlled by Shanna and Tony.
Oh, okay. So very interesting with Shane McMahon and all this stuff, all these deals going on. Does he have anything to do with AEW right now, as far as you know? Just not even obviously meeting with Tony, and he's on the same flight as the Young Bucks, blah blah. But I'm just thinking, like, is he have anything to do with the business aspect going forward of AEW?
I have no reason to think so. No, I mean, maybe it's imaginable that he would show up as talent, but no, nothing else. Not that I know of.
You don't think Tony would want to have anything to do with him or like do business with him?
I have no idea what Tony would want to do, but I think more association with WWE is something you should probably avoid. I wouldn't necessarily rule out that there isn't a short-term, fun, creative way to use him. But I mean, Shane was used in WWE as only talent since he left in 2009 as an executive. He hasn't had an executive role in a wrestling company since that time. And I know he's been involved in a lot of different business projects that we've got little hints about over the years, but I mean, none of them have really blown up into anything big either. So I would not expect that. And I would think that Tony wants, I mean, I guess we're not talking about ownership. Would he have some executive role in the company? I guess you could imagine that happening, but I would not expect that to happen either.
Just fun to get that picture out there and have people talking about it, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, Shane met Tony.
Right. I think Tony does a lot of things to try to promote and get buzz on social media. And I don't know what the thought process was in that being out there, or if it was intentional, if it was not intentional. Who knows?
And the flight with the Young Bucks, intentional, unintentional, by accident?
I have no idea. Who knows?
So obviously this AEW deal is nothing but good, not only for AEW, but I think for wrestling, because that means more competition for the next couple of years.
And they might not be done yet. You know, they've trademarked another name called AEW Shockwave, and based on the trademark filing, that's clearly intended to be some sort of TV show. And you know, the rumors are that they're talking to Fox, or that they are. Here's my belief: they're very interested in a broadcast partner. They're not interested in another cable partner. And when you hear Fox, I think there's no way they're going to be on Fox broadcast, maybe FS1. But I've been led to believe that no, they're interested in a broadcast partner now, that not necessarily Fox. It could be some smaller broadcaster like Ion. Could be the other. I mean, I look to the ones that don't have an association with WWE or UFC, so that would rule out NBC, CW, and ABC. So I bet it does leave CBS, Paramount on the table as plausible to me. Ion and Fox. But the thing with Fox, and we just touched on a little while ago, is that Fox felt like they weren't getting the return on investment that they wanted out of SmackDown. So they basically let SmackDown go, or they might have put a bid in that was not a strong enough bid. But AEW, whatever, if they make a deal with AEW, I'm sure it would be a far lower money deal, and it would produce lower ratings than SmackDown was. SmackDown did. But the degree to which it would be a lower cost might be enough to make the investment worthwhile for them. I don't know.
Right, could get a better ROI, pay less, and kind of get what you get.
Right, they'll deliver maybe half the viewership, but if it costs them, an eighth of the money, it might be worth it.
with them having that deal with the Mexico Fox, with AEW Fox in Mexico, does that have anything to do with US, or is that like a seedling, like they're testing it out and they'll do something with, or no?
I mean, I imagine if you have business partners internationally that are associated with another, with another parent company, I think that's probably helpful in leading to meetings or building trust. Could be. I think it's notable too that that's throughout Latin America and many different Latin American countries, and that I believe that used to be the distribution for WWE, and now all of that is moving over to Netflix, and that's creating a lot of vacancies for international media partners and international distribution. If they still want wrestling, well, the second best wrestling to have is AEW. But yeah, I think it probably bodes well for there being a potential Fox relationship domestically.
So Shockwave could technically be like the third show.
I think
no more Rampage.
I think Rampage is done, and I think we're probably going to be in a future where Dynamite and Collision will be taped on Wednesday. Dynamite will air live, and Collision will be taped that night too. And then I think there'll be another night where content will be filmed for a different partner, maybe Fox.
Interesting. I'm just very curious if, like, I don't know where they're going forward, just as far as Bryan Danielson. Done. They keep saying done full time. Is he gone? Is his contract's up? He's gone from AEW.
I guess they put a plastic bag over his head. What more is there to do? I don't know. I think he'll be back. I think he'll be back to have matches occasionally, but maybe as a full timer, maybe he's done. Yeah.
Man, crazy. One of the best, one of the all-time best there.
Yeah.
Obviously, some health scares too. I mean, some neck injuries and things like that.
He got my Hall of Fame vote. We put him in.
Me too. I put him in too. Yeah.
Okay. Observer Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Oh
okay,
yeah.
You're a voter as well. Okay.
Yes.
We're coming up. It's almost election season again.
Yes. I got mine in.
You sent it in already.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I was just looking it over last night and making a short list, I guess.
I believe Hall and Nash I put in there as well. I believe. Yep.
Okay.
I don't want to give too much away, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to get any death threats here.
Yeah.
Yes.
What, you voted for the Young Bucks? Why would you do that? Oh my God.
Yes, I usually do make my ballot public. We talk about it or something. And there's a great records keeper and historian who keeps record of like all the public ballots and how the votes change over time. Yeah.
Oh, who does that?
Corey is his first name. I don't know if he wants his whole name out there, but
okay.
But yeah, he shares like these spreadsheets with people, and he does a great job.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I mean, I've always kind of just admire what Meltzer's done. I know some people go crazy over some of that stuff. They go a little overboard, but I do admire everything he's done. And God, his history, his bookkeeping, if you will, on the history of wrestling. I don't know what it would be without him.
Yeah, I will probably vote. And I'll tell you, I will probably vote for the Young Bucks, for CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Cody Rhodes. Those are the people. And I have stars next to, meaning like I'll probably vote for them someday. I don't know if I'll vote for them this year. John Moxley and the Usos. That's just in the U.S., Canada. I look at this Japan list though. I don't know if I'm gonna. I usually always vote in Japan, and I don't know that I'm gonna vote for any of these candidates on the Japan list. Historically, I have voted for a number of years for June Byers. I put stars, maybes next to Junkyard Dog, Sputnik Monroe, and the Von Erichs, who are now like a 6-person or a 3-person candidate. Kevin, Kerry, and David. And as non-wrestlers, I have repeatedly voted for Grand Wizard, Reggie Parks, the belt maker, and Jim Johnston, the music producer.
I had to go Jim Johnson, of course. I did vote for my old buddy Kevin Sullivan too. I made sure I put him on there this year.
That's right.
And I did vote Dominic DeNucci. I love Dominic DeNucci. Interviewed him a few times, so I had to vote for good old Dominic as well. I did vote Hall and Nash. The Briscoes. I put the Briscoes on my list. This is going to get a lot of heat, but Goldberg's on my list.
Okay, I do have a star next to Goldberg, meaning like he's an edge case, no pun intended. I do not have edge marks. Sorry.
The Hart Foundation, gotta have them. Brainbusters, yeah. There's a bunch of good ones in there.
Yes. Aren't the Brain Busters? So this is specifically, we're getting deep into like unexpected Hall of Fame discussion. Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson with J.J. Dillon. Now, J.J.
So it's
Dillon
not
was not
no
with them in the WF. So if
no.
you
So it's
take
not
that
Brain
literally,
Busters.
this is like how long of a run? Like a 3-year run, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. If you read that literally, that's what's on the ballot there.
Yeah, I guess because it says with JJ. You are right. I just say Brain Busters because I always call them the Brain Busters, but obviously that's the Horseman with JJ. Yeah. Interesting. Offensico also should get some consideration as well.
Yes, they are on the ballot. If not, I guess so. This is all the additions, and then they are on as a tag team, and the Observer 2 years ago started to put tag teams on. So we have a number of candidates, including the Hart Foundation, where Brett's already in, Neidhart is not in, so they're on as a tag team. I have not voted for any of these tag teams. I think any of the people have been added because we're going to add tag teams now. I don't think I voted for any. Well, I did vote for Beauty Pair on the Japan ballot last year, and they did get in.
The interesting thing too, I like how he breaks it up, like Japan, Canada, like he kind of breaks it up. I mean, El Dandy, come on.
El Dandy is so I'm not going to vote in Mexico. Do you vote in Mexico?
Oh yeah, come on, El Dandy.
I used to vote. I have voted for in Mexico in the past, mainly to vote for the original Mystico. He's in now, so I abstain.
Oh, okay. What about Japan? You're not going to vote for any like Takayama or anything?
I think Takayama is close, but I don't know that he's in. There are some strong cases. I know people make strong cases for Shima. I don't know, and I'm a big Hayabusa fan. I'm not going to vote for Hayabusa though. Just not a big enough star in his time. And unfortunately, his time was cut short.
Yeah,
his terrible injury. I did vote for Meiko Satomura in the past, and if you're thinking of like somebody who was the best women's wrestler of her era, she's probably it. But I don't know.
Did she just wrestle for WWE? Like, not just, but I mean, at the end of the year, when they were in Japan, didn't she?
That might be right. I think she's having a retirement soon.
That's something interesting WWE's been doing, kind of having these people come in, wrestle, even Nakamura wrestling again for Pro Wrestling Noah. Very interesting what they're doing.
She did do the house shows at Sumo Hall and at
she did
at Edion in Osaka. Yeah, she wrestled Bailey in a title match at Sumo Hall in July.
I feel like if Vince was around, I don't know if any of this would be happening
at all. Going to work Noah again, I think, right?
Yeah,
Styles worked. No, this is not. And they sent NXT people over to do the global tournament. Yeah, this is definitely not happening if Vince is still around. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was at a TNA show a few months ago, and I was like, wow, I was like, I didn't know Regal's kid, Dempsey. I was like, he's on this show, and there was a bunch of NXT people on the show. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a TNA, not a house show because they're taping it, but it was like part house show, part, for the live audience. I was like, damn. It's like, I don't know if that would ever happen under Vince, where these guys are wrestling all over the place.
No. I mean, like, I struggle to think of anything similar. I have to go back to like Bradshaw and somebody in the tag league in All Japan in the late 90s, right?
Right.
Is there anything else that's even in that realm? There must be, right?
Ooh, I'd have to really think. I know, like, he used to let guys like Val Venus and stuff do indies during the Attitude Era. Like I'd be at my local high school and Val Venus would be in the main event against like the local guy. Like, but that's it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like crazy stuff here, but they were on such high demand. I'm sure they were getting a decent penny out of that.
I mean, the closest, I guess, would be yes, they definitely sent people to OVW, like they sent Kane to do like Six Flags and stuff like that, obviously. But that was an explicit developmental relationship.
Yep. Like Smoky Mountain, USWA back in the 90s, they would always send guys over there.
I'm thinking like 2000 to 2021.
Yeah, I'd have to really think about that. I know Nakamura, was it? No, that would have been last year when Muda retired. He did the Muda show. That was Triple H again.
That's that's post Vince.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. What's going on with Vince right now? Any latest on him?
He is being represented by a different PR firm now. He's no longer working with Mike Sidrick. He is being sued by Janelle Grant. He is, according to the Wall Street Journal, under criminal investigation with the Southern District of New York for allegations of sexual assault and sex trafficking. The civil lawsuit was put on hold until until tentatively December 11th. So is he going to be indicted? Maybe not. They feel like we might. Who knows what legal things, they always get postponed and rescheduled, but we might have an answer within the next 2 months. I don't know.
What is up with Janelle Grant? I see she's kind of all over the news with certain things. So
she also has new PR.
Okay.
So she's suing. Do you know Dr. Kolker?
Vince's or WB, was he a WB guy or a Vince guy?
A Vince guy. So he was in. Did you ever see the documentary Bigger, Stronger, Faster?
Yes.
He's in that, I guess. I've seen it too, but it's many years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's like a bodybuilder guy, and he's jacked, and he is a doctor, and he has a clinic called Peak Wellness in Greenwich, I believe, in Connecticut. And the story from Janelle Grant is that Vince McMahon sent her to Peak Wellness, where she was giving, according to her, unspecified pills or supplements. She was given IV infusions. She was not told what the details of any of these medicines were that she was being given, according to her. And she was being directed to go to this clinic by Vince. Vince was paying for it, and they are trying to obtain medical records from the clinic, from Dr. Kolker. They say they've gotten some records, but they're incomplete. They're paper records. They fear that they might be doctored or something like that. So they want all of Janelle Grant's electronic medical records, and they're looking at suing Dr. Kolker for a number of possible things, but they need these records to determine whether or not they're going to sue him. And this is what's going on in state court, while the big lawsuit that everybody knows more about is in federal court. That's the lawsuit against WWE, against Vince, against John Laurinaitis. That's the case that has been put on hold pending the criminal investigation, which maybe we'll find out more about soon. So that's what she was doing as we record this this morning. There was a new filing, just sort of a basic, to me, opposition to Kolker's earlier motion to dismiss to make this lawsuit go away. They sort of bat the tennis ball back and forth on this, and but they had a press call, the second press call in as many months since they brought on a new PR representative, and it was a relatively short press call. It was only 12 minutes, and they took a few questions, and I think they just want to get the story out there, which they probably feel has not been given enough or the right kind of attention. They want to sort of reset and remessage everything, I guess, but that's what they're doing.
Why does she need a PR team? I know maybe that's a dumb question, but what does she need the PR team for?
That's a question for them. I think you are suing WWE and Vince McMahon, who have enormous resources and theoretically enormous influence over media and an ability to get a message out there. Yeah. A lot of the comments on my social media when I am reporting news about this, there's a lot of skepticism and harsh things being said about her. So that all that could contribute.
Plus, maybe to counteract Vince, whatever because he's like you said, he's got a new PR team, so you got to counteract whatever he's doing, right?
I suppose, yeah.
Why did he get a new PR team? He didn't like I guess whatever was coming out about him, or
we have tried to find out. Nobody is being explicit about it. I believe Dave reported that so he was working with Mike Citrick, who's like a legendary PR guy who's worked with all sorts of people in different scandals and crisis situations. If you look at Citrick and Company's website, he has a list of like former clients, and it's just like every name brand you can think of. And I know that they worked together from April until a month or two ago, but I don't know more beyond what's out there. He's now working with another PR firm that wants to keep a very low profile, and I don't know that they'll be as active in making comments. At least they haven't been so far.
With Vince, right? With the Netflix documentary, he obviously tried to buy it out for a reason and everything that came out. Do you think now, looking at it, like it was a smear, or do you think that he kind of hurt himself with that documentary? You know what I mean? Like he's basically saying, "Oh, they tried to make me look like Mr. McMahon," but he was the one that kind of, when you actually watch it, was like a lot of the detriment to Vince McMahon. You know what I mean? It was almost like he kind of buried himself a little bit.
That is a way to read it. Yeah, I mean, like when you're saying things like when he's talking about the Rita Chatterton allegation of rape, and he's talking about, well, even it was outside the statute of limitations anyway. Now, bear in mind, he's saying this in probably 2021, before there's a New York law that sort of reopens a window for the statute of limitations. This probably contributes to his later NDA settlement with Rita Chatterton in late 2022, I believe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to weigh too much into it, and he's got a perspective that they use editing tricks to make him look bad. And there's the record of what Vince has done, and certainly the positions that he has scripted for himself with women on television. I think that you can look at that for itself. I think the documentary was sort of bookended with two very short summaries of what's been happening these last couple of years. I think the flaw of that documentary and every attempt to produce a biography of Vince so far has been, we are in maybe the most crucial chapters of Vince's story right now. So we're trying to tell the story when some of the most important events of his life are still unfolding. And the documentary was kind of a history of the WWF, which I think is more along the lines of what they envisioned for this documentary when they decided to do it in 2019 or 2020, or I believe 2020 is when they announced this project. It was going to be a look at Vince's life, and maybe they would have done it to some extent, warts and all, and maybe they would have gone over the 1992 scandals as they did. But to go into I would think what some people are looking for today is they want an in-depth investigative piece that uncovers new information and new insights and new perspectives about Vince and the people that he's dealt with that have never been before. You've watched it, I assume. Did we really learn that much that was new? Not so much. So, yeah.
Yeah, I felt like somebody like me that's been following this guy for 40 years is like, I don't know if I necessarily thought I was going to get a history lesson of everything I already knew, per se. You know what I mean? I was like, I thought it might be a little bit different.
And that's always the justification, is that, well, this is for a mass audience, and you gotta make it consumable for the casual fan, for people who just don't know who Vince is. And when you're producing a documentary for the 200 million subscribers of Netflix, I suppose it's hard to argue with that.
And I know when he was wrestling a couple of years ago, when he did that match with Pat McAfee, they were like extra filming that. So I'm guessing that was originally supposed to be a part of this documentary, and then they like wiped that all away. It was like, oh, I guess we don't need this, because it almost seemed like that was going to be a swan song. He's going to have a match. Austin's going to stunner him. It's going to come full circle, and I know, it just felt like that might have been what maybe Vince was envisioning was going to be the ending of the documentary. Obviously, that's changed.
Could be, yeah. And he starts this documentary off, where they edit him to start this documentary off with him saying, "I'm not going to tell you the real stuff. Those stories are too crazy," So if you learn anything about Vince and his perspective, I think it's that. I don't know if he's really interested in telling his side of the story, at least insofar as a full, open, transparent accounting of his view on things. And I think when the producer challenges him on the point about Ted Turner, and wasn't Ted really just doing the same thing that you were doing, but you're being so defensive about Ted Turner being a nasty competitor. Well, couldn't somebody say the same thing about what you did with the territories and how you wiped the territories away? And I forget the quote, but he says something to the effect of, well, the public doesn't understand that when you're in a situation, sometimes you say things that aren't what you believe, which sort of, I think, encourages you to visit what exactly are this man's principles, and how do you know when he's telling the truth? Which, on one hand, is probably surprising to nobody who's got a healthy sense of cynicism when it comes to Vince. But yeah, I think that was a bit revealing.
That's so funny because then they cut to Bischoff and he's like, it's so hypocritical. And like, obviously everybody that's been following the business, like he literally did the same exact thing in the 80s that Bischoff did, except for the roles were reversed. And it was like, the big bad monster was Bischoff and Turner in WCW. And then he's like, well, I can't really see how it's hypocritical. Well, maybe it is. Like that was very odd because it's so black and white, so obvious. Like, Vince, you did the same exact thing. How do you not see that? Are you bullshitting or are you being sincere?
Yeah, it's like something that makes me think about life and decision making in corporate companies of a certain size in general. It's like, I feel like, where are these people's principles? What do they really believe? And do they sort of just wear away and wash away on any principles they might have because they're deeply invested psychologically and emotionally in the pursuit of other goals, whether they be money or power or certain business achievements? And I think that's, it sure seems like Vince is colored by that as well.
Yeah, it's like all about green, or it's all about the bottom line. He doesn't necessarily care about some of these.
I think it's about identity more than even money and
really
maybe power. I think I think that, or I don't know if we want to get into this, but I think that's like why politicians are so do things that are like so psychologically inexplicable, because to do otherwise would be to deviate and would be to surrender their identity. They're not going to surrender their identity. They're going to do what makes them continue to be the leader, the president, the senator. And they're not going to, do something that's going to mess that up because they're so tied to that identity. And I think the justification and the rationalization, the narrative of that is different, right? You come up with reasons that make sense to yourself.
Yep. Man, you're getting really deep here. I didn't know you were going to get so deep. Damn.
That's what I do when I come on this program. I put on a winter hat and
yep.
and we go.
As we hit the wind down here, we head towards the finish. I got to ask you this, because you are the master of the quarter hours. You know this stuff. Who is the, let's just say, top 5 AEW draws, quarter hour ratings wise? Who are the top 5 WWE rating draws?
It's tough. Like I've been doing, math and programming to try to answer these questions, and I feel like quarter hours are not a sufficient data set because they're so sullied. But all right, I will try to answer. Like I've literally, like, just these past couple of weeks, I've been trying to create some sort of system that will analyze this information in a way that is correct and just looks and looks right, and I have not found it yet. Anyway, Punk has done well. I think MJF has done well. Roman Reigns has done well. Rock, when he's on, has done well. Cody has done well. I don't really have people who are, and even these people are not reliable every time, right? But what I want is many examples of these people being associated with segments that did well in the mathematical ways that I measure it. And I don't know if I have other people beyond that to say. So I think it was only mentioned one AEW person there, right?
Yeah, MJF.
Yeah, I don't know if I have other people.
What about YouTube? Who's
the
big who's the big YouTube draw? Because it seems like whenever Roman,
that is a cleaner data set. I haven't looked into that recently though, and I think it's largely the same people.
Because I, off the record or whatever you want to say, I had to do something for a certain WWE superstar, and I went through the YouTube and I literally found, I'd say, 25 videos of this specific wrestler, and it was kind of surprising because he's a heel, but he was one of their top like YouTube getters, and I was like, holy crap, like man, he's like killing on YouTube.
Who is
But
this
then
again?
I didn't want to say, but I'll throw it out there
Okay.
for you. Dominic Mysterio, and I was
Yeah.
shocked that he
Yeah.
was one of their big YouTube guys. I was like,
Especially in
wow,
his NXT run. Yeah.
yes, huge.
Yeah, and I can consider that in the context of what the scale of NXT is. But yeah, when Dominic Mysterio was doing a lot of stuff in NXT and the North American title and stuff like that, yeah, he was. I think it was the first few times I was like, this is just a coincidence, but it continued, and that must have. You have to label that a success, I think.
And then the family drama too, the mom video, and then Ray slapped him, and that all got good numbers on YouTube.
Oh, I'm being texted.
Oh,
Joe Koff has passed away.
I heard that. Yes.
Wow. Okay, that is news to me. Wow.
I had to let our friend Lavi know because Lavi has a picture with him. He loves Joe, so
Wow.
I had to let him know.
Yeah, that's sad. Wow.
I don't even how old was he? He didn't seem like he was that old.
Yeah, I don't know.
R.I.P. Joe Koff as we're talking here. Damn.
Looks like he's 73 is what I'm seeing here.
Oh, maybe he's older than I thought, but still, that's not that old at all.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Just to finish the YouTube thought, I always thought Roman was a pretty strong, obviously, just an easy YouTube get. I know 1 million views is tough, but it seems like he would always eclipse that for a lot of his videos.
Yeah, I have a script that gets triggered when there's when something passes 1 million views, and it's been a little while since that's happened for WWE, but Reigns came back, and there's some segment that hit 1 million views recently on SmackDown, and it was a Reigns segment.
He's the man, the golden goose, if you will. I remember I asked you a while ago, is he a draw? And we determined that he definitely was.
He's a draw, and he's a Hall of Famer. I'm going to vote for him.
Yeah. Come on, the last 4 years alone, geez.
Yeah.
Changed the business.
Yeah, and I think he was, I think he was a pawn in Vince's war with fans, but he is. There's clearly something there in the last few years, though. That's
yes.
He has helped bring this company to the highest heights of its popularity in decades.
100%. Yes. So before we let you go, what's the latest on WrestleNomics, and where can everybody find it? Patreon included.
Patreon.com/WrestleNomics is where you can find TV ratings reports, and the TV ratings reports also include attendance data. They also include this YouTube data for all the YouTube segments for each TV show. It's a breakdown of like, here's the rating for this show, here's the attendance for this show, with all the comparisons that you would imagine. I hope the YouTube clips for this show, the cage match response. If you don't like cage match, you just don't scroll that far down, and all the quarter hour reports that I put out for all of the all the big three AEW and the big three WB shows are out there, as well as other monthly reports and other writings and analysis that I do. That's all for subscribers, as well as a podcast that comes out every Sunday, WrestleNomics Radio, with just me talking to the ether by myself. And WrestleNomics.com is where there's sort of like a free version of those TV ratings reports as well, and other news and items.
Love it. How can you not like cage match? There's such a good.
I like cage match. I think it's
great tool.
It's good. But whenever I say cage match, people get mad sometimes.
Oh, because of the ratings or whatever, the match ratings or whatever. People are crazy.
Those marks don't know anything.
Yeah, screw those marks. Come on. I love going on there and like looking at like old school wrestling and see like who wrestled where and whatever. Like the spoiler in 1984 is wrestling for the WWF. Like, I like stuff like that.
It's fascinating. But as Jason Kelsey said recently, stats are numbers. Numbers are nerds. Nerds are losers. Therefore, stats are losers. In his attempt to sabotage my entire business here, I guess.
Wow, Kelsey, damn! I always knew I never liked him, but
Jason, the retired one.
No, I hate him because he's from the Eagles. I hate the Philly Eagles.
Yeah.
I hate. Remember
well, I'm a Bills fan, so the Chiefs have been terrorizing the Bills.
Yeah, true.
Years,
yeah, you got to help.
I scream at the TV whenever I see the Chiefs on there.
But just remember this great line from the Big Lebowski. I hate the effing Eagles, man. He was obviously referring to the band, but different Eagles. But that's what I always say. That's why I don't like Kelsey. But Brandon, thank you so much for all the time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Sean.